Yay!
Took a minute. All right. So today we are going to be talking about the three newest national monuments that President Biden just designated in California. And this is a topic that's we're passionate about, national parks, but also about California, because we are both native Californians, and we lived for over 20 years. Myself, I lived for over 20 years in the Pasadena area, and Brian and I both married and dating, lived in the Pasadena area as well, in Monrovia. So right now our thoughts are very much with people dealing with fires in those places.
Know a lot of friends, a lot of places.
Yeah, Angelino's friends in Pasadena, Altadena, just know we're praying for you guys, praying that the winds slow down and that they're able to get those fires under control. So we are thinking of you guys today, and this last week we've especially been thinking about that. And today we're going to talk about two of the newest national monuments that President Biden was actually there just designating last week. And Brian's going to tell us about them a little bit and what is interesting about them, and then we'll have it open for questions. So feel free to let us know in the chat if you have something you want to say, and yeah, just speak up. Okay,
Yep.
So what are the names of the two monuments that were announced last week?
Yeah, so we have two monuments, both of them in California. Unfortunately, it got smoked out, so to speak. The good news got just wiped out by the fires, but the monuments are still there.
Right.
And the monuments, just to be really clear, are not on fire. The
Right.
fires that are happening in California are not in the places where the monuments are located. In Southern California, there is Chuckwalla National Monument. It has nothing to do with woodchucks. Chuckwalla is actually a type of lizard there. And I'm really hoping, I did some work to try to find the pronunciation of Chuckwalla and of the other second one, Satitla National Monument, Satitla Highlands. So if I'm not pronouncing that right, please put it out phonetically, and I will learn. But we have, again, the one in the south is Chuckwalla, and it's located southeast of Joshua Tree National Park. It runs from the southeast border of that park almost right up to the Colorado River. So it's this wide swath across southeast desert California. And then up near Mount Shasta is Satitla Highlands National Monument. And that is in, again, just east, really, to the east of Mount Shasta there in the north.
Okay, cool. And so now, what is unique about these monuments? Why are they worth visiting? Are there things there that are special to them that make it worth a stop?
Well, there's a few things actually that make this unique. Really, in many ways, this is a landmark change in terms of the use of national monuments. And I think President Roosevelt, who got the first national monument started, would be pleased. The first national monuments were created to preserve and protect culturally sensitive sites. In fact, the first national monument ever created is a culturally sensitive site, and that's Devil's Tower National Monument. And what's different here is both of these national monuments, they not only protect culturally sensitive sites, but they are done in partnership with the indigenous tribes of those areas.
Oh, that's awesome, cool.
And this is a big difference. For a long time, the national park system didn't really work with native tribes. They might preserve native history, but the tribes were left outside. And here, this is one of three different movements in the state of California, tribes that are pushing for their culturally sensitive sites to be protected, right? And so two of those movements have become a reality with the establishment of these places. So there's local tribal history and sacred sites at these locations. At Satitla National Monument, there is Medicine Lake and the Medicine Lake volcano. which are beautiful locations of importance to the tribes in that area. This is a volcanic landscape. It has large obsidian flows, so you can walk on volcanic glass. It's, again, a high Siskiyou Cascade upland that's quite beautiful. It has lots of headwaters. These teeny tiny frogs in Medicine Lake, like that fit on the size of your finger.
Aw, that's cool.
So it's a very beautiful, picturesque area up there. Down in Chuckwalla National Monument, you have a wide variety of wildlife. You have tortoises, desert tortoises. You have the Chuckwalla lizard. You have Indian petroglyphs, and just a lot of history. There's a lot of history preserved at this site, including an overland wagon road,
Nice.
rather a stagecoach road
Right.
that serviced the mines in that area. You have historic mine shafts, and you also have the remains of World War II military camps where they did the training for the invasion and liberation of Northern Africa.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
You
'cause
know,
that would make
so-
sense because it'd be similar terrain, right?
Yeah, so all of that is included within that monument, Chuckwalla National Monument.
Nice. All right, that's nifty. So I know you've done a lot of research already on some of these monuments. Did you find out when they're going to be open to the public?
Yeah, so the answer is now and not now.
Right.
In many ways, these lands have already been open to the public.
Sure.
For instance, Satitla National Monument, Satitla Highlands National Monument, to get it all right, it was already composed of forest land that was federal forest land. So much of the land there is already open and people can come to it. The difference is that now it's not open for industry. It's no longer a place where industrial development can take place. It's no longer a place specifically where mining is allowed, right? Those types of industrial corporate work are not permitted in those areas. And so, the US government has tons of public lands,
Right.
and some of those lands can be leased out to companies for mining and for other purposes and other natural resources, and some cannot.
Right.
And with the formation of these national monuments, they are now closed to industrial work. So you could go to Satitla Highlands and go hiking right now
Oh, okay.
and visit these places. The one thing to be aware of is that it's not going to have the type of infrastructure that you would be used to when you go to Yosemite National Park or when you go to Devil's Tower National Monument. We go in and we look for a visitor center, we look for restrooms, we look for maybe a cabin. Those things are not necessarily going to be in place. Only what is already in place from a national forest standpoint.
Okay.
The same thing holds true with the second monument down in the south.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So things like the things that we like to catch when we go to national monuments and national parks is we often will check out the visitor center, like Brian mentioned, and we really love to take our kids to national parks, national monuments, any of these national sites, and let them do a junior ranger badge. So what we're saying is those things aren't going to be in place yet. You can still go see everything. Like the land is still there and available to look
Yeah.
at. And I would imagine there's roads and things like that, things that have been there previously, but you shouldn't go there expecting that you're going to be able to have maybe the full national park experience
Yeah.
that you're used to if you're a regular national park geek like some of us are.
Exactly. And it's not that, I think what's important to recognize is we're talking about infrastructure like bridges and roads. You might be able to drive around in certain parts of Chuckwalla, for instance, but it may not be, they don't have an auto tour loop there right now.
Right.
A good resource to go to, though, is the movements that have been making this a reality, like Chuckwalla. They have their own website, and you can go to, you just type in Chuckwalla National Monument. Right there, you will see the activist website, and they have information, and I don't doubt that, they may have a booth somewhere.
Sure.
Or they may have resources that will soon be coming out for people to make use of.
Okay, good to know. Well, and both of these are next to existing national monument, national park type places. Like you mentioned, one's near Joshua Tree. And when I was looking on the map, it looked like the other one is fairly near lava beds. And
Yes.
so you can go to those national park sites and pick up information and swing by the new ones on the way. So
Yeah, and in fact, there's overlap there because Joshua Tree National Park, it features the transition from the Mojave in the north to the Sonora to the south.
Right.
Well, Chuckwalla is the Sonora Desert.
Right.
So you will learn information about the Sonora Desert that is relevant at Joshua Tree National Park. Likewise, if you go to Lava Beds was part of the native homeland of the Modoc people. Again, Satitla Highlands National Monument, again, is native, was sacred and important to the Modoc people. That was one of the indigenous tribes, is one of the indigenous tribes that's connected with that region.
Okay, perfect. Right. All right. Now, these aren't the only national monuments that have been created recently, right? I mean, there were
Yeah.
several, I think, that we saw designated last year. So what are some of the other ones that are more recent that people might not have heard of?
Well, so that's a good question. I didn't come as ready for that one. I forgot about that question, but there are.
That's all right.
I will say there are a number. I know in Colorado, there was a national park designation specifically for a Japanese internment camp
Oh, that's right.
that
Yeah,
you
I
can
remember
visit
reading
there.
about that. Yeah.
That's one.
Okay.
But I will say that again, we're going to revisit this in a later discussion. We'll go over all of them. President Biden has actually created, some have said, more monuments than any president to date. And some people are really happy about that. Some people are not so happy about that.
Sure.
He has not only established new monuments, but he's also reestablished ones that were, brought back by President Trump that were lowered down from that standard. And he's expanded national monuments as well.
Okay. Cool. And then maybe for those of us who are not in the national monument and the national park, like we have friends, to give some explanation here, we have a couple of different friends who like to hit all of the national parks, and that doesn't always mean the same thing to everybody.
Yeah.
Our friends who are visiting national parks, I think there's a very specific number, it's like 63 right now,
Yeah.
of places that are officially national parks. But there are a lot of great places that we've visited that aren't a national park. They're not a national monument. They'll be like a national historic site or a national trail. Like there's all these different words around
Yeah.
it. So what's the difference? How does it, what does it matter?
It's a very confusing scenario. And, if you go to these different parks, you'll notice that it has the same logo.
Right.
It has the same
All the
look.
national park system.
It's all NPS. So why National Recreation Site? Why National Historic Site? Why National Historical Park? What's the difference between those two?
Yeah.
Frankly, the answer is a lot of bureaucracy and a lot
Red
of
tape.
complex political origins. In the United States, we're very much about local control. We have the federal government, then we have the state government, we have the local government, and we have a way that things are done. We have separation of branches. National Park, created by Congress.
Okay.
National Monument, created by a mandate of the executive branch of the president. So the Congress does not need to get together and vote to create a national national monument. They do for a national park.
Okay.
Okay, but for a national monument, it was first created by the Antiquities Act, and it was a very needful moment for the executive office to get involved to protect Native American sites that were getting raided.
Right.
Places like Monteverde,
Right.
and other cliff dwellings that
Right.
were being raided by people who wanted to steal antiquities and sell them. And so that's why the first national monuments were created. And national monuments, for the most part, are culturally focused.
Right. Okay.
Not-
That's a good point.
Not in all cases, but in many cases.
Okay, that makes sense.
But other than that, it's hard to distinguish between the two. I mean, national monuments originally were quite small because they only protected one area. But you see a place like Chuckwalla, and it's the same size as Joshua Tree.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So, right. So there was, okay, I had another question here, but now I've lost it in my brain here. But, yeah, so what other national parks, you know what, I forgot my question.
That's okay. Let me actually add in on this. These two monuments are not the only monuments that were being proposed for California. There were actually two other monuments that were being strongly proposed and were not signed into law by President Biden. One of them is, the Range of Light Monument, which would have been a huge monument. We're talking about over 1 million acres.
Oh, wow.
Connecting Yosemite Park to Kings Canyon and Sequoia down in the south. That monument was not approved. Another monument that was an indigenously inspired and an indigenous administration monument that has not yet been approved is down in the southeast corner. And I'm going to have to grab my notes for pronunciation on this one, but it's very much it's with the Indians that are located at the Yuma Reservation just across. It's Quetzin National Monument, and that monument has not come to pass yet either.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, so I think that's all the questions I had about national monument stuff, but we'd love to hear your questions. If you miss our live stream and you're watching this later, please feel free to just email us at dinkumtribe@gmail.com. You can just email straight there and we will add your question to our next live stream or wherever it's appropriate to put it. But we love to talk national park stuff. And if you're a national park geek, follow us because we hope to get to a lot of national parks, monuments, historic sites, the whole kit and caboodle of 400 plus that we have. We also have a blog post where we have a full list of all the current ones, and we're going to be adding these new ones in as well. So hope that you've found this helpful today, and we'll see you later.
Have a great Monday.